Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Explainer. Today we're zooming in on a truly monumental building that literally changed the course of architectural history. If you've ever wandered through the historic peninsula in Istanbul, right by the Nuruosmaniye entrance to the Grand Bazaar, you've probably stopped dead in your tracks just to stare at it. But here's the thing, this isn't just a beautiful building. It's a massive, fascinating manifesto carved out of stone and marble. Today, we're going to explore exactly how an entire empire reimagined its aesthetic identity. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. What actually happens when strict Eastern tradition collides with wild Western Baroque? For centuries, Ottoman architecture was all about very specific classical geometry, right? Picture those grand, rigid, perfectly balanced silhouettes. But what happens when you take that deeply rooted Eastern tradition and suddenly inject the dramatic, wavy, super ornate flair of European Baroque and Rococo styles? Well, you get a structural tension and a visual harmony that completely rewrites the rules of design.
To really wrap our heads around this building, we have to start with its name, Nuruosmaniye. Translated literally, it means Osman's light or the light of the Ottomans. And this name, it's absolutely brilliant. It does double duty. It's a direct nod to Sultan Osman III, who was reigning when the complex was finally finished, but it's also a very literal description of the architecture itself. This building was engineered to capture light. It's a physical and metaphorical enlightenment that just floods the entire interior.
So, here is our blueprint for today. 1. The Ottoman Baroque Revolution. 2. Two sultans, one Christian architect. 3. The triumph of light and engineering. 4. The courtyard breaking classic molds. And finally, 5. Not just a mosque, the complex.
Section 1. The Ottoman Baroque Revolution. This right here marks the very first monumental shift into something entirely new. Think about classic Ottoman design for a second. Those strict rectangular forms, flat niches, lead-covered wooden caps on minarets, and those intricate Muqarnas stalactite carvings. Well, Ottoman Baroque comes in and completely replaces those straight lines with this crazy dynamic energy. Suddenly, the facades are alive with convex and concave curves. We're seeing oyster shell motifs, acanthus leaves, and heavy stone minaret caps totally taking the place of wood and lead. It is a complete top-to-bottom transformation of their visual vocabulary.
Section 2. Two sultans, one Christian architect. Now, the story of Nuruosmaniye is essentially a story of an interrupted vision. The whole project kicked off in 1748 under Sultan Mahmud I. He was the guy who dreamed up this grand complex. But in a really dramatic twist of fate, Mahmud passed away before he could see his magnificent vision become a reality. So this massive project changes hands to his brother and successor, Sultan Osman III. He oversaw its completion in 1755 and, as is the prerogative of the victor, right, he named the finished complex after himself.
But who actually built the thing? Well, the makers behind the stone are honestly just as fascinating as the sultans. The head architect was Simeon Kalfa, a Christian Ottoman citizen. He was the innovative genius who somehow managed to blend those classic Eastern lines with dynamic, curving Western movements. And working right alongside him was Mustafa Aga, the building superintendent. Mustafa Aga was this crucial government official in charge of administration and financing. His job was basically making sure that despite this radical new Baroque style, the building never lost its essential Ottoman identity. Oh, and we definitely can't forget the master calligraphers, Rasim Ahmed Kefevi and Süleyman Efendi, who brought their world-renowned artistic mastery to the whole project.
Section 3. The triumph of light and engineering.
Step inside and you are immediately hit with a staggering number, over 170 windows. Arranged in 5 distinct rows, these windows completely pierce the walls of the structure, allowing massive amounts of natural light to just pour into the interior. And this isn't just for practicality, It was a deliberate architectural choice to emphasize the spacious, airy feel of the Baroque style. It literally makes the building live up to its name, the Light of Osman. And all of that natural light illuminates a space capped by an absolutely massive dome. Just to give you a sense of scale here, the main dome spans roughly 25 to 26 meters in diameter, and it towers over 43 meters high. That is massive. It's actually one of the largest domes in Ottoman architecture to be supported in this specific, unique way. And pulling that off required an absolute engineering marvel. Get this, there are 0 interior pillars. 0.
Rather than relying on thick, freestanding columns or those giant elephant pillars taking up space inside the main hall, Simeon Kalfa used giant arches, or vaults, embedded directly into the walls. By pushing all the immense weight of that 26-meter dome right onto the 4 outer walls, he achieved his incredibly spacious, totally uninterrupted interior. It's a breathtaking feat of physics. You walk in and there is literally nothing blocking your view or the light.
Section 4. The courtyard breaking classic molds.
Let's talk about the courtyard because the contrast here is wild. A classic Ottoman mosque always features a strictly rectangular inner courtyard. Traditionally, it's anchored by a large central ablution fountain, a shadırvan, where worshippers wash before prayer. Well, Nuruosmaniye completely threw out that rulebook. They replaced it with a concave, horseshoe half-oval shape. This was an absolute first in Turkish Islamic architecture. No way had this been done before, and they didn't stop there. They removed the functional central fountain entirely, swapping it for a decorative semicircular pool with jets just for aesthetic pleasure. The functional ablution taps, they were moved out of the way to the exterior walls of the outer courtyard.
And this defiance of classic expectations, it just builds and builds across every intricate detail inside too. Take the mihrab, the prayer niche pointing toward Mecca. It's no longer flat, it protrudes outward with this convex polygonal design. Then you have the minbar, or pulpit, which is considered an absolute peak of Ottoman marble craftsmanship, featuring long curving banisters and a distinctively Baroque spire. Even the structural column capitals abandon those classic geometric patterns for Western-style Corinthian and composite designs, and the Sultan's lodge, the Hunkar Mahfili, was heavily gilded and uniquely accessible via its own exterior ramp.
Section 5. Not just the mosque, the complex. To really fully appreciate Nuruosmaniye, we have to zoom out a bit. This was a kulliye, a full-blown social complex, and its features are pretty incredible. The Sultan's pavilion actually featured a gentle ramp so the Sultan could literally ride his horse indoors before a reception. I mean, how cool is that? Then there's the Nuruosmaniye Library, which is one of the most original examples of civilian Baroque architecture, sporting this oval-planned interior to house thousands of manuscripts. You've got the Sibyl at the bazaar entrance, using these circular marble grids to distribute water to the public. And remarkably, because the whole complex was built on a steep slope, they had to construct a massive vaulted basement, a masin, just to level the ground. Today, that vast, really atmospheric space has actually been restored to host art exhibitions. Yet, despite all these incredible Western influences, the building remains fiercely Ottoman at its core. Wrapping completely around the interior of the main hall is a massive, continuous band of calligraphy. It features the Fitti, or Conquest, Surah. This absolute masterpiece of traditional Islamic art acts as a spiritual anchor. It basically ensures that while the shell of the building is remarkably Baroque, the heart beating inside it remains deeply, deeply traditional.
So, what does this all mean? The core idea is captured perfectly in a quote from our source material. Nuruosmaniye is the first and most magnificent monumental example of the transition from the classical to the Baroque period. It was never just a place of worship. It was a bold declaration. It was an empire visually expressing its engagement with the wider world, taking fine Marmara marble and Kufeki stone and blending them into a living, breathing testament to a changing era.
Which leaves us with this final thought to ponder today. As an empire evolves, as it starts to look outward and embrace new global ideas, how does the architecture it leaves behind forever reshape its cultural identity? The next time you walk past a historic building, I really encourage you to look just a little closer at the shapes, the curves, the small details. They aren't just decorative. They are the physical fingerprints of a society in motion. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the world built around you.